Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman from California's best named city, Sherman Oaks. Thank you for coming today. I'm pleased to be hosting this important event with my friend Casey Choi,
Here.
right over there, from the Korean American Public Action Committee, also known as KPAC. And I'm thrilled to be sitting next to Judy Chu, who, among other things in Congress, is chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, also known as KPAC. And as I said, also known as KPAC. So you can spell KPAC with a K or a C, and we've done it both ways. Casey has brought here to Washington 2 members of the South Korean Assembly, Kyoung-hyup Kim and Woon-ju Lee. Who will give us insights into the inter-Korean relations and developments affecting the United States, Korea, and regional security. I want to point out, as I mentioned, the South Korean Parliament, that the bill we're here to discuss, the Peace in the Korean Peninsula Act, has the support of a majority last year, and now a majority this year, now that we've reintroduced it, of the members of the South Korean Parliament. We are having the 70th anniversary of the date in 1953 when the parties to the Korean War signed the Armistice Agreement. Now, the most famous armistice in world history is the armistice that ended World War I. That was followed up in a few months with the Versailles and other treaties that were treaties of peace and legally concluded the state of war. Well, while that happened in a few months, it has been 70 years and we have not had a treaty of peace. That would be one step we could take. There are those who say that would be a concession to North Korea. When Eisenhower entered into the armistice, that was not a concession, it was a mutual compromise. And the finishing of that work with a formal peace treaty is also not a concession, but a compromise. We will someday make concessions to North Korea, but I expect that they will be mutual concessions and will help us bring us closer to peace as we go forward. But an end to the war is an important step. There are also those who say, well, if you don't have an ongoing state of war, then you can't have American troops based in South Korea. I would ask, do we have a state of war with Germany, France, Belgium, or Italy, Lithuania, or Poland? And the answer, of course, is no. You do not need a state of war in order to base our troops. We have our troops are based there pursuant to treaties we have with the sovereign, which is the South Korean government. But just to answer the critics, we have put into this year's bill an explicit provision that says that we are not in any way undermining the legal right of the United States and the other UN defenders to have troops there. Now, I have a wonderful and long speech, but I first want to hear from my colleague and friend from Southern California, Judy Chu.
Well, thank you so much, Congressmember Brad Sherman, for organizing this important briefing, and to our distinguished guests from South Korea's National Assembly who are here with us. Yes, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu from the other KPAC. Yes. Yes. I like to think of us as the sister organization of KPAC, the KAPAC, that Casey Choi so honorably heads. But yes, our organization is CAPAC, the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. And it's my honor to be here to mark the 70th anniversary of the Korean War Armistice. 70 years ago, the Korean War Armistice Agreement put an end to 3 years of horrific fighting, but it did not put an end to the war. Even today, 7 decades after the fighting has ended, the Korean Peninsula and the Korean people remain divided. But we are here today because we know and we really need to achieve peace. That is why I am proud to commemorate this anniversary to mark 70 years of the U.S.-South Korea alliance and to affirm my support for finally achieving permanent peace on the South Korean Peninsula. And in fact, several years ago, I was privileged to travel to the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. I saw firsthand the lasting tensions and division that the war has caused. But I also saw instances of cooperation and people's hope for a better future. And it's so crucial for the U.S. to do everything we can to make a better future possible. And that is important because as this briefing shows, there are many Korean Americans who are putting their time, energy, and resources behind these efforts. In fact, we worked together to host a CAPAC, CAPAC Congressional Forum right here on Capitol Hill on North Korea and the Korean American community so that members of Congress could hear from experts about the challenges that lie ahead for reunification. I will never forget hearing the powerful testimony from an 86-year-old woman named Soon-bak Kim, who was just a girl when she fled her home during the Korean War. At that time, she expected to spend just a few months away, but that turned into decades during which she had not been able to see her family. In tears, she told our forum that her dying wish is to be reunited with her family before time runs out. And hers is just one story. There are so many Korean families, both on the peninsula and around the world, who've experienced similar heartbreak. Fortunately, thanks to the incredible grassroots support from activists like those here today, we've made progress. Last year, we passed H.R. 826, the Divided Families Reunification Act, into law as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, directing the State Department to work with the South Korean government and Korean American families to find opportunities to reunite loved ones. But so much work remains to be done. That's why I'm so grateful to be an original co-sponsor of H.R. 1369, the Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act, which is led by my colleague, Representative Brad Sherman. It will bring us closer to lasting peace by calling for a formal end to the Korean War and promoting diplomacy by establishing liaison offices on U.S.-North Korean relations. And it also recognizes the 100,000 Americans who have relatives in North Korea by calling on the State Department to re-examine our strict restrictions on visas so that more U.S. nationals can see their families again, even just for special occasions. All of these efforts drive our ultimate goal of lasting peace and reunification, both on the peninsula and for millions of families in the U.S. and around the world. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Next up is from,
If I,
yes,
I'm continuing.
yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes. Testing. I did want to cover the act in greater depth. We have heightened, I don't have to tell you, heightened tensions, nuclear tensions, particularly on the Korean Peninsula. Pyongyang has launched a record number of missiles in 2022. It's continued its saber rattling in 2023. Tensions are continuing. This bill is something I've been working on for several years with Casey Choi and with KPAC, and now with KPAC. And it stems from my 27 years on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and my several years as chair of its subcommittee on Asia. I want to focus on I do want to mention that I have visited with many South Korean dignitaries, including our colleagues who were in my office just yesterday. President Yoon traveled to South Korea, met with the then president, visited Panmunjom. I did not race over the border and say ha 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 and become a prisoner of the North Korean government. At least now and then I screw up, but I didn't do that. We introduced, as I said, the Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act in the prior Congress. We had 45 co-sponsors here. We've reintroduced the bill, and I'm confident that we'll have even more co-sponsors this year. But the bill is just a part of our ongoing effort to change American foreign policy. If we pass the resolution, that would be an important step. We pass the bill. But if we get the State Department to move even before the bill is passed, that would be an even better outcome. It is time to add a peace treaty to the various things that we are discussing with North Korea. I am pleased that out of the 300 members of the South Korean Parliament, 166 have already supported this bill in its present form. The bill it only talks about an official end to the state of war, which I think is important, but also directs the State Department to try to have those family reunification visits that Judy talked about. There are 100,000 Americans with relatives north of the 38th parallel, and if just some of them could in their lifetime be reunited with family members, that would be so important. The continued state of war creates an unnecessary intense situation, and moving toward a peace treaty would be an important confidence building step. In fact, one of the few confidence building steps that we could engage in that isn't a concession to the North Koreans. Does not mean fewer military exercises, does not mean an end to sanctions, but rather is by its very nature symmetrical. And both parties are doing the same thing at the same time, namely ending a tragic war from 1953. Let me be clear, I am not suggesting any reduction in our military commitment, and our political commitment to South Korea is absolutely ironclad. You counted on us for 70 years, you can count on us for another 700 years. I do want to go off script a little bit to deal with things that are outside the scope of this conference, and that is the overall nuclear and sanctions policy. We can never forget that North Korea is poor in large part because of its government, and that sanctions don't always just affect the upper elite at which they are aimed. We also realize that not only is North Korea developing its missile technology, and in all probability putting Los Angeles within the crosshairs of their missile and nuclear program, that they are developing additional nuclear weapons. The centrifuges continue to spin. North Korea already has far more weapons than they would need, even if you bought the idea that, even if they are legitimately afraid of the United States and South Korea. Any defense doctrine for a country the size and in the geopolitical situation of North Korea would not require 70, 90, 100 nuclear weapons. My concern is that with our sanctions and with the mismanagement of the economy of North Korea is desperate for weapons, for money. And the only thing it has in surplus, it does not have a surplus of food, it does not have a surplus of medicine, but it has a surplus of nuclear weapons. And the greatest, or one of my greatest fears, is that they will choose to sell those nuclear weapons. we could make the world safer if North Korea had a highly monitored, limited number of nuclear weapons. I think that's a more realistic end goal for our negotiation than what is the stated goal, and the one we have pounded the table about for 20 years, and that is CIVID, complete, irreversible, verifiable disarmament. I'd like to have CIVID. I'd like to have many things. But I don't think there's any possibility of getting it. We have tried to get it for 20 years, and every day the world has gotten more dangerous because every day the technology for the missiles and the number of nuclear bombs increases. So from a political standpoint, either for a politician or a bureaucrat, the easiest thing to do is just pound the table and say CIVID, North Korea bad. Politicians can always say, those are bad people, we shouldn't talk to them. You don't make peace with your friends, you make peace with your enemies, and your enemies are not good people. But we ought to have a realistic bargaining position designed keeping in mind that North Korea does not think that we're the good guys. They do not think that we are harmless and would never engage in a war of aggression. They are aware that Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi gave up their nuclear weapons. And they're aware that Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons. And I think that realistically we should be pushing for a highly monitored, stabilized, not increasing nuclear position in North Korea rather than the current situation. I think that North Korea would benefit very substantially, not just from an end from our sanctions, but an opening of the international economic community. You see how prosperous South Korea is and how occasionally there's starvation in North Korea. And this is a deal the world needs. So I look forward to working with people here toward a peace treaty and then closer to real peace. And with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sherman. I highly encourage everyone to read the HR 1369. That will say everything that Mr. Sherman just reminded us. Okay, the next up is Mr. Kiss Choi. I'll bring him up here. Korean American History book will have a chapter marking year 2017. That is the year KPAC was founded. Monumental moments and public actions for good cause keep going ever since then. Let me introduce the KPAC founder and the president, the fearless leader, Casey Choi.
Let me make it very short. As a second generation of divided family, having a lot of obligation for my late dad to bury his ashes at his homeland, North Korea. And as well as the president of KPAC, Korean American Public Action Committee, advocating peace on the Korean Peninsula, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to the strong leadership and never-ending support for the peace on the Korean Peninsula from the most experienced senior House Foreign Affairs Committee member, Honorable Congressman Brad Sherman, and his staff, Haiti and Evan and everybody. Thank you so much. And Honorable Chairwoman of Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, another KPAC, Judy Chu, and a lot of members, like almost 50 members in Congress, joining today and supporting the bill. I also appreciate all the preparation and dedication from the delegation of Republic of Korea for this historic and monumental congressional briefing session commemorating 70th anniversary of Korean War Armistice Agreement today. Yes, it's been 70 years of division and confrontation. From that long-lagging division and confrontation, we have tons of pain and suffering. I believe 70 years is enough. More than ever, it's time we should find out the best way for the permanent peace on the peninsula for our next generation. And we see some hope and bright light and bright future through the Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act, HR 1369. I appreciate all the Congress members and staffers, and think tankers, and media and correspondents joining today, and hope this event is very fruitful and informative for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. So next up is the first presentation and Q&A session. This will be done by a longtime supporter of peace effort journey, the third term National Assemblyman of Republic of Korea. He is on Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee in the National Assembly and is with the Democratic Party of Korea, 더불어민주당. Let's welcome Kim Kyoung-hyup.
Ladies and gentlemen, nice to meet you. 제가 이 프리젠테이션을 영어로 할 수도 있는데 제 발음이 사투리 발음이라서 이해를 잘 못하실 것 같아서 저는 일단 한국어로 하고 그다음에 통역을 이렇게 하도록 하겠습니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's very nice to meet you. Obviously, I would be able to present this my presentation in English, but I do have a little bit of an accent, so I will be using my translator today.
예, 오늘이 정전 70주년, 그러니까 지금으로부터 70년 전에 3년 2개월 동안 치러진 한국 전쟁이 멈춘 전투를 중단한 휴전 협정이 체결된 날입니다.
Today marks the 70th anniversary of the signing of the Armistice agreement that put a brief end to 3 years and 2 months of fighting on the Korean Peninsula.
이 정전 70주년을 기념해서 한반도 평화 문제와 관련된 오늘 브리핑 세션을 갖게 된 것을 대단히 기쁘게 생각하고 오늘 이 자리를 마련을 해주신 브래드 셔먼 의원님 그리고 여기에 여러 협력을 해주신 연방의회 의원님들과 의회 관계자 여러분 그리고 싱크탱크 언론인 여러분들께 진심으로 감사드립니다.
It is a genuine pleasure of mine to be able to hold this information session on the 70th anniversary of the Armistice Agreement, and I would like to extend my gratitude and appreciation to all those who are involved in the preparation process.
저는 앞에서도 소개를 했지만은 국회 외교통일위원회 소속 의원이면서 국회 평화 외교 포럼 대표 의원이기도 하고요. 지난 5월 달까지는 국회 정보위원장, 상임위원회 국회 정보위원장으로서 여러 가지 정보기관들의 보고를 통해서 현재 북한의 움직임과 의도, 그 다음에 한반도 평화 문제에 대한 현실에 대해서 여러 가지 사실들을 확인할 수 있었습니다.
As was introduced, I am currently the member of the Republic of Korea National Assembly Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee. Until this May, I was the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and through the extensive briefs that were provided to me by the Intelligence Community members, I will be able to provide a very informed session today.
이를 토대로 오늘 발표의 주제인 한반도 비핵화와 평화체제, 과연 실현 불가능한 꿈인가? 라는 주제로 설명을 드리도록 하겠습니다.
Which leads us nicely to my presentation: is denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula and establishing a peace regime the impossible dream.
프리젠테이션을 보면서 제가 추가로 설명드린 부분들은 추가를 하도록 이렇게 하겠습니다.
I will be presenting with PowerPoint slides, and if there's any additional information that I'd like to provide, I'll be doing verbal. Thank you.
먼저 73년 전에 한국에서 발생했던 한국 전쟁, 그 3년 2개월 동안 벌어진 한국 전쟁은 정말 참혹한 전쟁이었습니다.
The Korean War, which took place in 1950, was a devastating war that gripped the Korean Peninsula.
한반도 인구 1,900만 명 이상이 전쟁의 피해를 당했고 한국군 16만 명, 북한군 64만 명이 전사했으며 민간인 175만 명이 사망을 했고 피난민이 650만 명, 이산 가족이 1,000만 명이 발생을 했습니다.
More than 19 million people were affected by the war. 160,000 South Korean soldiers and 640,000 North Korean soldiers were either killed or went missing in action. 1.75 million civilians were killed or went missing in action, with 6.5 million people forced to move from their homes, and 10 million people were separated from their families.
한국 전쟁 3년 2개월 동안 미군도 총 178만 9천 명이 참전을 했고 이 중에서 전사자가 33,600여 명, 부상자 9만 2천여 명, 실종자 3,700여 명, 포로 4,400여 명의 포로가 발생했습니다.
More than 1.789 million U.S. Service members participated in the war, with 33,686 killed in action, 92,134 wounded, and the figures, as you can see in the PowerPoint slides.
그리고 70년 전 오늘 바로 그 전투가 중단되는 정전협정이 체결됐고 그 이후 70년이 지난 대한민국은 대단히 변화하고 발전했습니다.
And 70 years ago today, we signed the Armistice agreement that put an end to active conflict, and during those 70 years, the Republic of Korea has prospered.
개발도상국 중에서 2차 대전 이후 최초로 선진국으로 격상한 나라가 되었고 유엔 웅쿠타드의 의결입니다. 그리고 1인당 GNI는 70년 만에 430배, GDP는 4만 5천 배 성장했습니다.
And during those 7 years, the Republic of Korea became the first country to move from a developing country to an advanced developed country, according to the United Nations. And our GDP and GNP has advanced, as you can see in the figures.
한국의 K컬처가 오징어 게임, BTS 등등의 우리 한국의 K컬처도 세계적으로 명성을 떨치고 있습니다.
And Korean culture, including TV shows such as Squid Game, has taken over the world.
그러나 이 화려한 발전의 이면에는 아직도 한반도에는 전쟁의 기운이 여전히 남아 있고 최근에 이 한반도에는 긴장이 더욱더 고조되면서 무력 충돌의 위기, 전쟁의 위기가 점점 더 커져가고 있습니다.
However, while we see this miraculous development, on the other side we see heightening tensions on the Korean Peninsula and ever-increasing likelihood of military clashes or even breakout of war on the Korean Peninsula.
작년 한 해 동안 북한의 미사일 발사가 역대 최대, 연간 기준으로 봤을 때 역대 최대인 42건의 미사일 발사가 도발이 있었고 여기에는 미국 본토를 타격 가능한 ICBM도 포함되어 있습니다.
In 2022 alone, 42 missile provocations were followed through by North Koreans, which was the most in recorded history that's taken place in one single year. And this includes intercontinental ballistic missiles with the capability of hitting continental U.S.
여기에 맞서서 지난 1년간 한미 연합훈련도 대폭 확대 강화되었습니다.
And in response to this, we had ever-increasing strength in terms of ROK-US combined military force.
22년 10월에 역대 최대 한미 연합 공중훈련 비질런트 스톰이 실시됐고 2023년 3월에는 한미 연합 훈련인 프리덤 쉴드 대규모 야외 실기동 훈련이 부활을 했으며 미국 전략 자산이 23차례에 걸쳐서 한반도에 전개됐습니다.
In 2022 and 2023, we had the revival of U.S. ROK military exercises, joint combined military exercises, with U.S. strategic assets being deployed into the Korean Peninsula 23 times.
이 한미 연합 군사훈련과 북한의 무력 도발이 서로 악순환하면서 계속 상호작용을 하고 있습니다.
We have entered a vicious cycle where U.S. military exercises causes more provocation from North Korea, and North Korean provocation leads to more ROC U.S. military exercises.
네, 화면을 좀 넘겨주시고요. 이렇게 북한이 미사일 도발을 하면은 한미 연합 훈련이 점점 강화되고 북한 미사일 여기에 맞서서 북한이 더 자주 더 강도 높은 미사일을 도발하고 여기에 맞춰서 한미 연합 훈련은 또 더욱 강화되는 이렇게 서로 지금 상호작용하면서 악순환이 계속되고 있습니다.
I believe this slide effectively shows this vicious cycle.
이렇게 되기까지는 지금 남북 관계 그리고 북미 간의 대화가 중단되면서 교착 상태에 빠져 있기 때문입니다.
And I believe the reasons for this is because U.S., North Korean, and inter-Korean relations have reached a stalemate.
2018년 4.27 판문점 선언 남북 정상회담과 싱가포르 북미 정상회담이 일정 정도 성과를 발휘하긴 했지만 그 이후에 하노이에서의 북미 간의 2차 정상회담이 노딜로 끝나면서 이런 교착 상태에 빠지게 됐고 그 이후에 지금까지 북한은 대화를 중단한 채 정면 돌파를 선언하고 있습니다.
While we've had some limited success during the Panmunjom Declaration and the Singapore summit between the United States and North Korea, the failure of a negotiation at the Hanoi summit has led to this stalemate. And ever since the failure of the Hanoi summit, North Korea has refused to come to the negotiation or talking table.
핵과 전략무기 개발을 가속하고 있고 최근에는 이미 동창리에 ICBM 발사대를 복원하고 풍계리 핵실험장도 복원했다는 정보도 보고되고 있습니다.
North Korea has continued to increase and strengthen its nuclear and strategic weapons capabilities and has re-established the missile launch site in Dongchangli.
자력 경쟁을 통해서 미국의 국제사회의 제재를 무력화시키려 하고 있고 최근에는 아예 체제 안전을 보장을 해주지 않는 한 대화는 하지 않겠다라고 선언하고 있습니다.
They have attempted to circumvent international sanctions through self-sufficiency and has claimed that without a guarantee of its safety, it will not come back to the negotiation table.
이 앞부분입니다. 예, 여기에 지금 현재 한국의 윤석열 정부도 역시 강경일변대의 대북 정책으로 일관하고 있습니다.
In response to this, the Yoon administration has also taken a very hard-line stance on North Korea.
북한이 선 행동을 해야만이 지원하고 협의를 하겠다라는 지금 담대한 구상을 발표했고 자체 핵무장과 선제 타격 등의 과격한 주장도 제기되고 있습니다.
And from the Republic of Korea, the bold initiative from President Yoon assumes North Korea's preemptive changes, and hardline claims such as self-nuclearization and preemptive strikes have emerged inside South Korean politics.
미국은 조정되고 실용적인 접근 방법, 외교적 해법을 모색 중에 있습니다.
And the United States' stance regarding this issue is to coordinate find a diplomatic solution under a coordinated and pragmatic approach.
현재 교착 상태에서 북한과 미국은 서로 다른 지금 현재 셈법을 구사하고 있는데요. 북한은 대북 적대시 정책을 철회, 즉 체제 안전을 보장할 것을 새로운 계산법으로 제시하고 요구하고 있고 미국은 조건 없는 협상장으로 복귀를 요구하고 있습니다.
North Korea and the United States assume parallel positions, and with North Korea insisting on the reversing of its hostility from the United States to North Korea, ensuring the safety of the regime, while the United States maintains that North Korea's unconditional return to negotiations and claims that it will not move first without de facto denuclearization measures on account of North Korea.
지금은 이 교착 상태를 깨고 한 발이라도 더 내딛는 것이 대단히 중요한 시점입니다.
I believe that it's crucial now to break this stalemate and to make the first move.
대화가 교착 상태에 빠진 이유를 보면은 여기에는 상호 간에 엄청난 불신이 작용하고 있습니다.
And believe in order to analyze why this dialogue has reached a stalemate, I believe the underlying issue is the lack of trust between all the parties.
서로 먼저 양보할 것을 요구하면서 서로 양보하는 것은 그 양 당사자가 서로 거부하고 그러면서 신뢰 구축에 기회는 마련되지 않고 교착 상태는 여전히 계속되고 있습니다.
Because of this mutual distrust, there are demands for concessions from the other party, which is refused and then lacks the opportunity for trust building, which causes this stalemate.
여기에는 지금 동북아시아 지역, 태평양 지역에 다양한 이해 당사국들이 함께 얽혀 있는데요. 일본의 납북자 문제, 러시아 우크라이나 전쟁, 그 다음에 북한의 해킹이나 위조 지표와 같은 어떤 불법 행위 등의 문제들까지 같이 지금 얽혀 있습니다.
And I believe what further complicates this issue is the web of interests that interlocks, including Japan's abductee issues, Russia's war in Ukraine, and North Korea's illicit activities, including hacking.
이 복잡하고 다양하게 얽혀 있는 문제들을 한꺼번에 일괄타결하는 방식으로 해결을 주장은 할 수 있으나 그리고 실제로는 해결하기 어렵습니다.
Negotiations that seek to solve all of these issues simultaneously can only worsen the complex nature of this problem.
복잡하게 얽힌 실타래를 서로 당기기만 하면 더 얽혀지고 더 풀기가 어려워집니다.
In this complex situation, if only we maintain our respective positions, it will only further strengthen the complex nature of the situation.
그동안에 한미 간에는 다양한 방법들을 시도를 해왔습니다.
The Republic of Korea and the United States has taken multiple approaches to solve this issue in the past.
그 첫 번째 방식은 대북 제재, 압박의 방식이었습니다.
The first of these approaches would be sanctions imposed on North Korea.
90년대 초반, 1990년대 초 1차 북핵 위기에서 시작된 대북 제재가 30년 동안 지속됐지만은 그러나 이 제재와 압박만으로는 결코 아무것도 해결되지 않았습니다.
The U.S. sanctions imposed on North Korea in the 1990s during the first North Korean nuclear crisis have sustained for over 30 years but have failed to resolve the situation.
이 대북 제재는 북한의 경제를 악화시키는데 나름대로 영향을 미쳤고 또 경제가 어려워진 북한은 오히려 가성비가 더 좋은 적은 돈으로 더 무장력을 강화할 수 있는 핵무기와 미사일 개발에 더 박차를 가하는 요인으로 작용을 하게 됩니다.
Sanctions have weakened the North Korean economy, and paradoxically, North Korea's weakened economy has forced it to seek asymmetric measures to defend itself.
2016년 기준으로 보면은 남북한 간의 경제력 규모는 50배 이상 차이가 나고 여기에 국방비 예산도 이미 50배 이상이 차이가 나고 있습니다.
The differences in the scales of the economies between the Republic of Korea and North Korea are more than 50 times, with the defense budget also more than 50 times.
북한의 어려워진 경제는 더 이상의 50배 차이의 군사력을 국방 예산을 감당할 수 없고 북한은 가장 저렴한 가격으로 맞설 수 있는 핵무기와 미사일 개발에 집중하게 된 것입니다.
North Korea can no longer keep up with the defense spendings of the Republic of Korea and has turned to nuclear weapons, which they believe is able to secure their regime without as much costs.
그리고 여기에는 최근에 북핵 대응과 관련된 국제적인 공조도 약화되고 있습니다.
And further dialogue have continued to weaken because of the prolongation of this situation.
22년 5월 북한의 ICBM 발사에 대해서 유엔 안보리는 추가 제재에 실패했습니다. 중국이나 러시아가 거부권을 행사했기 때문입니다.
And the additional sanctions that we wanted to impose on North Korea have failed in 2022 because of the vetoes exercised by the Chinese and Russian sides.
그 다음에 또 하나의 방식이 이 제재와 압박을 계속하면서 전략적 인내라고 하는 방식이 있었습니다. 미국의 입장에서.
And we also had the approach of strategic patience, which was to maintain sanctions while waiting for North Korea to change.
그러나 역시 이 시기에 역시 제재는 계속됐지만은 대화는 중단돼 있었고 이 시기에 북한은 탄도미사일과 핵 개발을 급진전시켰습니다.
And during this phase of strategic patience, sanctions have remained, but dialogue has not continued, which led to North Korea further developing its nuclear capabilities.
총 6차례 그동안 핵실험 중에서 4번의 핵실험이 바로 이 시기에 진행되었습니다.
Out of the 6 total nuclear tests, 4 were conducted during this period.
그리고 시간이 갈수록 북핵은 점점 더 고도화되고 있습니다.
And as time passes, North Korea's nuclear capabilities have continued to advance.
그렇다면 그 다음 방식입니다. 대화로 북핵 비핵화 달성은 가능한가의 문제입니다.
Which leads us to the next question, which is, can we lead North Korea's denuclearization through dialogue?
이 또한 성공적으로 해결하지는 못했습니다.
This unfortunately has not been able to successfully denuclearize North Korea either.
그러나 1차 북핵 위기에서는 제네바 합의 방식으로 2차 북핵 위기 때는 육자회담 그리고 9.19 공동성명 그리고 지난 2018년에는 남북 정상회담과 최초의 북미 정상회담 9.19 군사합의 과정을 통해서 그 시기에나마 대화가 진행되고 있던 시기에나마 북한의 핵 개발은 지체되거나 멈추게 되었고 일정 정도 의미 있는 몇 가지의 조치들도 이루어지기도 했습니다.
However, whether through the Geneva Agreement, the 6-party talks or the 4-party talks, the talks during inter-Korean summit and the United States North Korean summit, for the comprehensive military agreement signed in 2019, we have been able to continue dialogue, and during this phase of dialogue, slow down at least North Korea's nuclear development.
We have Honorable Congressman Andy Kim's here, and let me introduce him real quick. He's a son of Korean immigrant parents, served as a United States National Security Council officer. Back then, Kim became the first Asian American U.S. representative from New Jersey. Of course, he's one of the co-sponsors of H.R. 1369, Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act. Let's hear a congratulatory remark from the U.S. representative representing New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District, Andy Kim.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah? Well, look, I wanted to just say thank you to everyone who's come together. Thank you to Congressman Sherman for hosting this briefing and appreciate his team's efforts in pulling this all together. Thank you to our guests for coming from the Assembly, my counterparts over in South Korea, to be able to make sure that here in this room that we have a celebration between the United States and South Korea for marking this observation of the 70th anniversary of the Armistice. I have to say, when we look back on the last 70 years, there's a lot to be proud of. What you laid out in your presentation in terms of showing how much growth there's been, not just in the relationship between the United States and South Korea, but when you look at South Korea over the last 70 years, that is one of the greatest success stories in the world. A country that was, when my parents were born at the end of the Korean War, a country that was plunged into even further crisis, famine and disease and challenges. And look where it's at now. We're talking about a top 10 economy of the world, a country that is now a cultural and arts and entertainment juggernaut in the world, a country that is driving innovation around the world. It has been remarkable to see the growth that South Korea has gone through. And the United States has a lot to be proud of in playing a role in helping support that transformation, for giving the Korean people some sense of foundation to be able to build off of. And certainly in terms of our security partnership, something that's been an anchor to not just efforts on the Korean Peninsula, but throughout the Indo-Pacific and frankly around the globe, the U.S.-Korea strategic security partnership is unprecedented and one of the most important elements of what we do on national security around the world. That's why it's so important that we think about not just reflecting on the past 70 years, but thinking about what the next 70 years are going to be. And that's really on us. We're grateful for the hard work of people in this room and previous generations to be able to usher in that level of trajectory over the last 70 years. I'd like to see that go forward. And that's why we've been gathering together, thinking through what we can do to try to make sure that this next 70 years is the 70 years of continued growth when it comes to innovation, continue economic success, continue cultural exporting and growth around the world. But we also want the next 70 years to be one of stability and also a path towards peace. Of recognizing that that is a goal that is still worthy of our efforts and something that we like to see come about. Now, the path for peace and the pursuit of that does not mean that we're being naive. We recognize full force with our clear eyes the challenges that we remain, and we know that there are a lot of challenges that remain in the Indo-Pacific region. We know that North Korea continues to, their regime there continues to obstruct the abilities for diplomacy to be able to get us towards that path towards peace. We know there are rising tensions, especially when it comes to the relationship between my country and China and other issues that are around there. But that's all the more reason why it's important for us to recommit ourselves towards peace and do what we can to be able to build that kind of foundation towards that. So what I've tried to be doing, the things that I try to push for is how do we modernize the U.S. relationship to South Korea, take that to the next level. Make sure that, again, we're not just holding ourselves back to what happened 70 years ago. We reflect on that, but we need to grow from that, build on that. And I think it's time for us to really think about how we can build that further. 70 years ago, what happened 70 years ago, that was about the world coming to the rescue of South Korea. That was the relationship that was forged at that time. Right now, it's not that South Korea needs rescuing. We can be at equal footings. We can be as equals of countries that are amongst the most powerful in the world, working together to try to increase stability. Working together to figure out how we can grow economic growth, what we can do to drive innovation. So that's what I get really excited about. And that's something that I hope all of us can commit to. That we want to make sure the security and the stability remains, but we want to bring this relationship into the 21st century. Modernize it, anchor it on where things are now, be able to make sure we learn our lessons and build on what happened in the past. But I think that this would be a really good fitting for the observance of the 70-year anniversary of the Armistice for us to be able to think forward. Think about what role we play. What do I do to make sure that my family, my entire family outside of my immediate family still lives in South Korea? Still worried about their security, still worried about stability, still worried about their economic growth. What can we do to make sure we bring that forward? So as a member of Congress, as a Korean American member of Congress, as someone that has worked dutifully over my career on national security, I want to use this moment to just kind of recommit my own effort to making sure that we push for that peace, that we try to think about what we can do to go build forward. And I thank you all for playing the roles that you do. It's going to require advocates and champions both in the United States and in South Korea to try to make sure that we push this forward. It's going to require people both inside and outside of government working together for common cause, trying to make sure we show what it is that we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. So thanks so much for coming on out. Thanks for letting me be a part of this briefing. Thank you for traveling over from Korea to give us the real understanding of what things are like on the ground, because it's so important that we don't tell you what you need to do, but we work together as partners, drawing upon your expertise. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
앤디 김의원께서 바쁘시다고 그래서 안 바쁜 제가 잠깐 발표를 중단하고 저 좋은 말씀을 듣기 위해서 제가 시간을 좀 드렸습니다. 아까 좀 진행을 하다가 계속하겠습니다. 그래서 우리 일부에서는 대화가 과연 이 효과가 있는 거냐, 무용지물 아니냐라고 하는 주장도 있습니다. 그런데 그동안에 쭉 지난 30년 동안 대화가 이루어지기도 했고 중단되기도 했지만은, 그러나 중단된 시기에는 북한의 핵 개발과 미사일 개발은 급진전돼서 발전을 했고, 대화가 그나마 이루어지고 있던 기간이나 대화의 성과가 발생했던 시기에는 나름대로 작지만은 진전이 된 부분도 있었습니다.
Because of the failures of talks to completely denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, there are some who claim that dialogue is useless or will not be effective. However, if we compare those phases during the past 30 years, where we've had talks and where we had confrontation, we can know that during those phases of confrontation, North Korea's nuclear capabilities have grown at a rapid rate, as opposed to the slowdown or some development that we were able to see during those phases that we engaged in dialogue.
2018년 남북 정상회담이나 북미 정상회담이 그래도 이루어지고 있을 때는 북한은 풍계리 핵실험장을 폭파하기도 했고 동창리 미 ICBM 발사대를 해체하기도 했습니다. 그리고 미군 유해를 송환하기도 했고 그 다음에 DMZ, JSA 지역의 실질적인 비무장화 조치까지 이뤄내는 이런 성과들도 있었습니다.
During the talks between the Republic of Korea and North Korea, we were able to induce North Korea to destroy its Punggye-ri nuclear test site, disassemble its 동창리 missile launch sites, repatriate the remains of United States soldiers from the Korean War, and to demilitarize the joint security area.
이런 대화를 위한 노력과 대화가 진행되면서 문재인 정부 5년 동안에는 남북한 간에 단 한 차례의 무력 충돌도 없었고 단 한 명의 전사 장병, 단 한 명의 전사 군인도 발생하지 않았습니다.
Which is why I'm able to say that during the 5 years of the Moon Jae-in administration, there has not been one single incident of an accidental military clash between the two Koreas, as well as any injuries or loss of life during those times.
그렇다면 앞으로 어떻게 해 나갈 것이냐에 대한 물론 여기에 대한 의견도 여러 가지가 있습니다.
And in this context, there are several ways to answer the question: how do we approach the denuclearization moving forward?
여전히 지금도 선 비핵화가 된 다음에 평화협정을 체결하자고 하는 주장이 있습니다.
There are those who still maintain that denuclearization needs to come first before any peace agreements.
지금은 대북 제재에 집중하고 북한이 먼저 비핵화를 이행해야만이 그 다음에 평화협정이나 종전선언도 해낼 수 있다라고 주장하시는 분도 있습니다.
Those that claim denuclearization needs to come first must maintain that we need to concentrate on deterring North Korea and demanding North Korea's preemptive changes.
이 주장도 지난 30년 동안 반복적으로 계속해서 주장이 됐지만은 그러나 어떤 효과도 거두지 못했습니다.
This claim has been repeated over the past 30 years, but has so far had no effect.
그 다음에 또 하나의 주장은 먼저 종전선언과 평화협정으로 비핵화를 추동해내자, 대화를 견인하고 비핵화를 추동해내자라는 입장이 있습니다.
On the other hand, there are those who claim that we need to induce denuclearization through measures such as end-of-war declarations and a peace agreement.
상호 실천이 가능한 쉬운 것부터 실천하면서 단계적 이행을 통해서 신뢰를 구축하고 서로 쌓아진 신뢰 속에서 비핵화의 진전을 시켜가고자 하는 입장입니다.
These are those who claim that denuclearization must be achieved through end-of-war declarations, maintain that actionable, phased actions from both sides will induce denuclearization through building mutual trust.
여기에 있어서 종전선언과 평화협정은 평화체제와 비핵화로 가기 위한 과정이고 수단입니다.
In this regard, the end-of-war declaration and peace agreement is a tool and a phase before we reach complete denuclearization and permanent peace.
비핵화를 촉진시키는 촉진제이기도 합니다.
It also is a catalyst for inducing denuclearization.
그렇다면 이것을 어떻게 이행하는 것이 현실적인 방법일까, 실현 가능한 방법일까에 대한 고민을 해봤습니다.
Which leads us to the question of what is the actual actionable solution for the advancement of denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula.
우리가 부모들이 아이를 키울 때 특히 무조건적인 반항기에 있는 사춘기 아이들은 가끔 사고를 많이 치지요. 사고를 쳤을 때 계속 질책하고 매로 때리기만 하면은 어떻게 됩니까?
I'd like to ask the question, when as parents we're raising our children and they go through adolescence and puberty years and they act out and they're causing some trouble, if we only use sticks against these children, how do they react?
해법은 그냥 매로 때리고 그냥 욕하고 질책하면은 감정적으로는 시원할 수는 있습니다.
When they cause trouble, giving them trouble back may be satisfactory on a very emotional level.
그러나 아이는 점점 더 삐뚤어지고 점점 더 큰 사고를 치고 나중에는 부모에게 대들고 때로는 칼을 들이대기도 하고 집에다 불을 지르고 가출하기도 합니다.
And those troubled teenagers, when met with only trouble from their parents, will only be induced to more trouble, more acting out, even perhaps violence from the side of the children.
이 한반도 문제를 풀어나가는 방식도 이런 부분들을 잘 염두에 두고 실현 가능한 방식으로 유도해내는 게 중요하다고 생각을 합니다.
And I believe the situation is very similar on the Korean Peninsula. If we were to induce good behavior from North Koreans, actionable actions, actionable items are the best way to approach things.
그래서 지금 저는 두 가지 트랙을 제안을 합니다.
Which is why I propose a two-track approach.
첫 번째 트랙은 한반도 평화를 구축해 나가는 트랙입니다.
The first track is the establishment of the peace regime on the Korean Peninsula.
먼저 종전선언과 종전선언을 통해서 평화협정을 준비해 들어가고 추진해 가고 한반도의 평화체제를 구축해 나가는 과정에서 이 과정에서 남북한이 서로 여기에서 느끼는 전쟁의 불안감, 전쟁의 공포를 해소해 나가면서 안정된 평화체제를 통해서 서로 무기 경쟁이나 핵무기 개발이 필요하지 않도록 상황을 만들어내는 기반을 조성하는 일입니다.
And through discussions and a peace declaration, we will prepare the situation where both sides recognize the fears and tensions raised by continuing facing off between the two sides, to recognize the need for stability and to recognize the non-need for arms races and the development of nuclear weapons.
일부에서는 주장을 하면서 먼저 비핵화를 하지 않으면 종전선언을 하지 않겠다라는 주장도 있습니다.
Again, there are those who claim that a peace end of war declaration cannot take place without denuclearization first.
그러나 이것은 수단과 목표가 뒤바뀐 주장입니다.
But I believe this confuses the ends and the means.
과정과 결과물이 바뀐 주장이기도 합니다.
This confuses the process and the outcome.
비핵화가 전혀 진행이 안 되고 대화조차도 지금 이루어지지 않고 있기 때문에 이 대화의 계기를 만들고 비핵화를 촉진시키기 위해서라도 먼저 한국 전쟁 지금 현재 전쟁을 공식적으로 끝내고 평화 체제에 대한 논의를 시작해야 합니다.
In a situation where no dialogue or negotiation is taking place, we need to provide impetus behind dialogue and negotiations by through the end of war declaration.
그 다음에 이 종전선언을 북한에 대한 선물이다라고 주장하는 사람이 있습니다.
And there are those who claim that this end of war declaration is a present or a concession to North Korea.
한반도에서 전쟁을 끝내고 평화 체제를 만드는 게 북한에만 좋은가요?
And I would like to ask those people back that is a end of war on the Korean Peninsula, stabilization on the Korean Peninsula only beneficial to North Koreans.
전쟁의 공포, 전쟁에 대한 불안감은 북한뿐만 아니라 우리 남한에도 여전히 가지고 있습니다.
The fear of war persists not only on the side of North Koreans, but on the side of the Republic of Korea.
우리 한국 국민들도 좀 더 안정된 평화 체제에서 경제 활동을 할 권리가 있고 이것은 이 평화는 인류의 보편적인 공통의 가치라고 생각합니다.
I believe that the citizens of the Republic of Korea have the right to pursue economic activities in a stable environment, and I believe that peace is a universal value shared by humanity.
바쁘신 메릴린 스트링밴드 의원님이 또 오셔서 제가 발표를 잠시 중단하고 메릴린 의원님의 의견을 듣고 다시 발표드리겠습니다.
She has only a couple of minutes. She is right in the middle of voting.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here today. Welcome to the members of the Assembly for joining us. To my good friend Casey Choi, nice to see you all. This is a very frantic week in Washington, D.C. because we're trying to get home for August recess. So they've compressed everything into the next few days, and we're just running from committee to voting. But I just want to let you all know that I am honored to represent the 10th Congressional District of Washington State. I am even more honored to be one of the first Korean American women elected to Congress in its 234-year history. And also just to let you all know that the relationship between the United States and the Republic of Korea is strong, it remains strong, and it will always be strong. We're going to continue to work together on economic issues, on geopolitical issues, and doing what we can to promote peace when we can. We also want to make sure that you understand that Korean Americans who are here in the U.S., who are part of the diaspora, are valued and incredibly important members of our community. And please know that those of us who are here in the United States are doing everything we can to support those in South Korea as well. I'm very excited to let you know that I will be part of a delegation going to Korea in October because it was postponed when President Yoon was here. And I look forward to going back what I call the motherland. I am a proud American woman, but I will always be a daughter of Korea. So thank you for having me here today, and thank you for letting me stay.
한국에 방문하신다고 그러니까 꼭 오셔서 함께 우리 평화 문제에 대해서 진전된 논의를 해봤으면 좋겠습니다.
I look forward to discussing peace-related issues with Representative Strickland when she visits the Republic of Korea.
그다음에 종전선언과 평화협정에 대한 주장 중에 또 하나의 주장은 이 종전선언을 하게 되면은 주한미군이 철수하게 된다라고는 주장이 있습니다.
There is also the argument from those who oppose the peace declaration is that a peace declaration would negate the necessity of USFK forces stationed in the Republic of Korea.
전혀 사실도 아니고 가짜 뉴스입니다.
I believe this is not only factual but fake news.
왜냐하면 종전선언은 지금 정전 체제에 있는 한반도에서의 전쟁을 공식적으로 끝내는 정치적인 선언이고 주한미군은 한미 상호 방위 조약에 의해서 주둔하고 있는 전혀 법적인 근거가 다른 체계입니다.
The reason is the end of war declaration would be a political statement to put a formal end to hostilities on the Korean Peninsula, while USFK being stationed in the Republic of Korea is legally based on the ROK-US Mutual Defense Treaty.
그 다음에 또 하나의 주장 중에 이 종전선언을 하면은 유엔사가 해체된다고 하는 주장이 있습니다.
There is also the argument that an end of war declaration would negate the need for the United Nations command.
이 또한 전혀 사실이 아닙니다.
This is also infactual.
종전선언이 이루어지더라도 이건 정치적인 선언이기 때문에 평화협정이 체결돼서 평화협정으로 대체되기 전까지는 기존의 정전협정 체계는 유지됩니다.
Because the end of war declaration is a political statement, before we have a formal legal end of the war through a peace treaty, the necessity for the United Nations command would persist.
이 유엔사도 정전 체제에서는 지금 현재 정전 체제의 관리기구로서 작용을 하고 있지만은 평화협정이 체결되면은 평화 유지군 형태로도 지속될 수도 있습니다.
There is also the possibility that while currently the United Nations command acts as a body to maintain armistice, they may still remain as an entity to maintain peace relations between North Korea and the Republic of Korea.
이 투 트랙의 전략에서 두 번째 트랙은 바로 비핵화 협상을 진전시키는 트랙입니다.
Of the two-track approach, the second track would be pursuing negotiations for denuclearization.
북한의 비핵화 문제와 대북 제재 문제는 서로 맞물려 있습니다.
The issue of denuclearization cannot be separated from the issue of sanctions imposed on North Korea.
비핵화의 진전 정도에 따라서 제재 완화의 정도가 함께 같이 보조를 맞추면서 갈 수밖에 없는 체계로 지금 짜여져 있고, 그래서 이 문제를 해결하는 것은 결국 북미 간의 대화이고 북미 간의 협상에 의한 결단이 필요한 과제입니다.
Because of the way it was designed, as denuclearization proceeds, the alleviation of sanctions must meet the level of denuclearization, and in this regard, the dialogue between the United States and North Korea is absolutely crucial.
서로 불신이 크기 때문에 이 신뢰를 구축하는 과정이 중요하고, 이 신뢰를 구축하는 과정은 아까 말씀드린 대로 현재 가장 이행하기 쉬운 것부터 합의하고 실행하는 것인데요.
Because the problem stems from a lack of trust between all the parties involved, building trust would involve implementing the most actionable items between the two sides.
그 첫 번째 단계는 북한이 핵을 동결하고 비확산, 아까 얘기했던 판매하거나 확산시키지 않는다라는 전제와 일정 정도 부분적인 제재 완화와 북미 연락 사무소 설치가 서로 합의가 될 수도 있다라고 생각을 합니다.
I believe some possibilities would involve freezing of nuclear development and the promise of non-proliferation, including the selling of nuclear weapons to third-party countries, would come from North Korea, and easing of sanctions and establishing of a U.S.-North Korea liaison office could be one of the options to explore.
이게 이 첫 번째 단계가 만약에 성공적으로 수행이 된다면 두 번째 단계 핵시설 불능화 및 핵폐기와 그 다음에 제재 해제나 북미 정식 수교의 형태로도 발전해 갈 수 있을 것입니다.
Once trust is built through phase 1, phase 2 could involve the disabling of nuclear facilities and dismantling of existing nuclear weapons in North Korea, met by the lifting of sanctions and the formal establishment of diplomatic relations between the United States and North Korea.
바로 이 1단계를 가능하게 하는 법안이 이번에 브래드 셔먼 의원에 의해서 발의된 한반도 평화법이라고 생각을 합니다.
And it is my firm belief that the Korean Peninsula Act would play the role of inducing phase 1.
아까 우리 27년에 하원 외교위원회 활동을 해보신 경험으로 한반도 문제를 가장 정확히 꿰뚫어 보고 있는 최고의 우리 연방 의원들 중에서의 최고의 전문가라고 생각을 합니다.
Obviously, Representative Brad Sherman, through his 27 years of experience in the Foreign Affairs Committee, would be the top expert in this regard.
그 탁월한 식견이 이 한반도 평화법이라고 하는 아까 얘기했던 투트랙 전략 중 1단계를 가능하게 만드는 이 한반도 평화법을 발의할 수 있었고, 여기에는 이런 그동안의 한반도 문제에 대한 지속된 전문적인 관심이 없이는 거의 불가능했다라고 생각합니다.
His experience has culminated in the Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act, and I don't believe that just any of this would have been possible without the experience and continued care regarding this issue.
이 한반도 평화법은 지금 현재 교착 상태에 있는 남북 관계, 북미 관계를 새로운 대화를 재개시킬 수 있는 계기가 될 수도 있고,
I believe that the Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act may act as a catalyst for the restarting of dialogue between all the parties involved.
궁극적으로 한반도 비핵화 협상을 촉진하는 기반이 될 수 있다라고 자신합니다.
And I am also confident that it may play the role of being the foundation upon which denuclearization talks can happen.
그리고 이 법안에 대해서는 우리 국내뿐만 아니라 국제사회에서도 연대와 지지가 굉장히 폭넓게 진행되고 있습니다.
And support for denuclearization and talks on the Korean Peninsula exists not only within the Korean Peninsula and the United States, but also internationally.
지난 2020년 6월 15일에는 저를 비롯해서 한국 국회의원 300명 중 174명이 한반도 종전선언 촉구 결의안을 발의한 바 있습니다.
On June 15th of 2020, 174 lawmakers from the ruling party of the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea, including myself, has introduced a resolution calling for the declaration of the end of war on the Korean Peninsula.
21년 5월 20일 날 브래드 셔먼 의원에서 1차 한반도 평화법이 발의됐을 때 바로 그 다음 날 5월 21일 날 하루 만에 우리 한국 국회의원 300명 중에서 186명이 하루 만에 지지 성명에 동참했습니다.
And one day after the introduction of the Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act during the 117th Congress, 186 members of the National Assembly out of 300 total have signed their support to this bill.
아까 프리젠테이션 의원께서는 먼저 말씀 중에서 166명이 법안을 지지했다라는 말씀을 하셨는데 제가 잘못 들었나? 제가 그러고 있었거든요. 그런데 정확한 숫자는 186명의 국회의원들이 지지에 참여했습니다.
It was 186 total members of the National Assembly that supported this bill.
영국 하원에서 에드 데이비디 자유민주당 의원이 117대 미 하원 한반도 평화법을 지지하는 결의안을 발의했고요.
Honorable Ed Davey, a member of the Liberal Democrat of the United Kingdom's House of Commons, introduced a resolution in support of H.R. 3446, submitted to the 117th U.S. House of Representatives.
프랑스 상원의회에서는 한국전쟁 종전선언 지지 결의안이 국가 단위에서는 세계 최초로 만장일치로 채택되는 의결을 이뤄냈습니다.
The French Senate unanimously adopted the resolution calling for government efforts to the adoption of the Declaration of the End of the Korean War, which was first of its kind that was adopted unanimously on any governmental level.
다시 한번 이 법안을 발의해주신 우리 브래드 셔먼 의원님과 여기에 이 지지 서명에 함께 참여해주신 연방 의원님들께 진심으로 감사의 말씀을 드립니다.
Sherman and all other members of the House of Representatives in support of this bill.
그리고 이 법안이 지금 중단되어 있는 대화를 시작하는 계기가 되고 우리 한반도의 비핵화와 평화 체제를 촉진하는 기반이 될 것이라고 확신합니다.
And I have no doubt in my mind that this bill will play the role of being the impetus behind the renegotiation, restart of talks between the two Koreas, and the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
시간이 너무 많이 지났다고 빨리 끝내야 됩니다. 그래서 바로 끝내겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
She is currently floor leader at For Justice Party, 정의당, National Assemblywoman of Republic of Korea. She will be doing the second presentation and Q&A.
반갑습니다. 안녕하세요. 저는 대한민국 국회의원 정의당 이은주 의원입니다. 반갑습니다.
My name is Lee Yoon-ju. I'm the deputy floor leader of the Justice Party and a member of the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea.
네, 먼저 한국전쟁 종전선언 및 평화협정 체결을 촉구하는 내용이 담긴 한반도 평화법안 재발의 3개월 만에 33명의 미 의원들께서 지지 성명을 했다는 소식을 들었습니다. 한반도 평화를 위해서 법안을 발의해 주신 우리 브래드 셔먼 의원과 그리고 미주민주 참여포럼 KPEC 최강철 대표님과 여러 회원님들 미주 동포들에게 뜨거운 연대와 감사의 인사를 드립니다.
33 members of the U.S. Congress have provided their support for this bill in less than 3 months after its first introduction. I would also like to extend my appreciation to KPAC, Casey Choi, and all other members who have provided their support to this bill.
네, 그럼 시작하겠습니다. 한국전 정전선언 70주년 새로운 평화를 준비합시다.
The 70th anniversary of the Armistice of the Korean War. Let's forge ahead with the establishment of a peace regime.
70년 전에 한반도 전쟁은 종식되고 한미 동맹이 체결되었습니다. 제가 오늘 여러분께 드리고 싶은 질문이 있습니다. 정전 70년은 평화를 준비하는 시점인가? 아니면 또 다른 전쟁을 준비하는 시간인가? 우리는 이 고통스러운 질문에 답을 해야 할 시간입니다.
The Korean Armistice was signed and the ROC-US alliance was forged 70 years ago. I would like to ask a question at this point. Does this mean that we're now at a threshold of peace or another war? As painful as it is, we can no longer postpone determining our stance on this question.
한국 전쟁은 2차 대전 이후 미군이 해외에서 가장 많이 사망한 전쟁입니다. 그 숫자는 무려 37,000명입니다. 이 고통스러운 전쟁을 끝내고 체결한 정전협정은 단순히 전쟁의 종결만은 의미하지 않습니다.
Second to the Second World War, the Korean War was the deadliest conflict that the United States has ever been involved, in which 37,000 soldiers have lost their lives. The Armistice Agreement, which brought an end to this excruciatingly painful event, was not intended to simply suspend belligerence, but to bring it to an end.
협정 제60조에서 협정 체결 당사국들은 조속히 한반도 평화 정착을 위한 정치 협상을 촉구하는 것으로 끝을 맺고 있습니다.
In Article 60 of the Armistice Agreement urges the signatories to engage in political negotiations to advance a peace settlement.
한 번도 이행되지 않은 유일한 조항입니다.
This is the only provision that has never been implemented of the Armistice Agreement.
일찍이 2007년도에 당시 조지 부시 대통령은 노무현 대통령을 만나 한반도 전쟁을 종결하는 남북미 3자 종전협정을 말한 바 있습니다.
In 2007, then President George W. Bush met with President Roe and discussed the possibility of a trilateral discussion to end the Korean War.
프리젠테이션에 안 넘어가고 있네요. 네, 그 결과 2007년 14 남북 공동성명에서 3자 또는 4자의 한반도 전쟁 종결을 위한 논의를 착수하기로 합의한 바 있습니다.
This led to the Inter-Korean Agreement to undertake relevant trilateral or quadrilateral discussions as stipulated in the October 4th Inter-Korean Joint Declaration of 2007.
그러나 북한의 핵 문제는 전쟁을 종식하려는 모든 노력을 수포로 돌렸습니다. 지난 문재인 정부에서 도널드 트럼프 대통령도 김정은 북한 국무위원장을 싱가포르에서 만나 종전 선언을 약속했으나 이마저도 2019년 하노이 북미 정상회담에서 수포로 돌아갔습니다.
To our regret, these efforts went down the drain due to North Korea's nuclear issues. In 2018, former U.S. President Donald Trump met with Chairman Kim in Singapore, and this meeting appeared to provide some momentum for enduring peace, although it came to naught with the collapse of the 2019 North Korean U.S. Hanoi summit.
한반도 평화에 대한 노력은 마치 그리스 신화에서 신의 벌을 받은 시지프스의 비극적 운명처럼 보입니다. 70년간 계속된 이 형벌로 고통을 받을 이사자는 바로 한반도 또 해외에 나가 계신 우리 주민들입니다.
These past developments reminds us of the tragic myth of Sisyphus, punished to endlessly roll his boulder up the hill. The main victims of this lack of a peace agreement that has continued over the past 7 decades are the residents of the Korean Peninsula as well as the Korean diaspora.
저는 이 악순환을 끝내자고 이 자리에서 여러분들께 말씀드리며 한반도 전쟁의 종식과 새로운 평화체제 구축을 위한 새로운 시작을 제안합니다.
I call for your resolution to put an end to this vicious cycle and propose to take action for a new beginning of a permanent peace regime in the region.
그동안 많은 실패를 보면서 한반도 종전과 평화협정 체결이 이상주의가 아니냐고 사람들은 비난합니다.
Some criticize that the pursuit of a binding peace agreement and a formal end to the Korean War is no more than a far-fetched ideal. But is this really true is the question that I would like to ask.
과연 그런가? 과거 한국 전쟁과 비교되지 않는 더 파괴적인 무기와 절멸의 위험을 감수하는 전쟁 준비가 평화라고 믿는다면 이런 지적은 맞을 수 있습니다.
Only if you believe that the making of preparations for the war, despite a far greater risk for destruction than the Korean War, is the pathway towards peace, does this criticism make sense?
지난 4월 한미 정상회담에서 양 정상은 유사시 미국의 핵무기가 투입되는 워싱턴 선언을 발표했습니다.
In the ROK-US summit in April of this year, the two sides unveiled the Washington Declaration, which expressed the intended nuclear deterrence of the United States.
저와 정의당은 이 선언에서 미국의 전술 핵무기가 한반도에 재배치된다거나 한국의 독자적 핵무장을 허용하는 핵 확산의 가능성이 차단된 데 대해서 다행스럽게 생각합니다.
The Justice Party, including myself, feel relieved that this declaration eliminates the possibility of nuclear proliferation through the redeployment of U.S. tactical nuclear weapons on the Korean Peninsula or the approval of the Republic of Korea's nuclear armament.
한국이 핵무기 확산 금지 조약 준수를 약속한 것도 잘된 일입니다.
The Republic of Korea's reaffirmation of its commitment to the Non-Proliferation Treaty is also good news.
지금은 어떤 이유로든 핵전쟁이 일어날 가능성을 차단해야지 또 다른 핵전쟁을 준비할 때가 아닙니다.
I believe that this is the time to end the possibility of nuclear war, but not to increase the number of nuclear weapons available to us.
날이 갈수록 핵전쟁의 문턱이 낮아지는 시대에 우리는 단호하게 핵을 반대하며 한미는 한반도에서 어떤 핵전쟁도 준비하지 않는다고 확고하게 약속해야 합니다.
Instead of making preparations for a new nuclear war in a world where acquiring nuclear weapons is becoming easier than ever before, we must sternly say no to the increase of and proliferation of nuclear weapons, and the United States must make that commitment.
상식적으로 핵무기와 평화는 양립할 수 없습니다. 과거 냉전 시대의 핵 군비 경쟁이 마치 더 많은 핵무기가 평화를 선사할 것이라는 잘못된 교훈을 도출했습니다.
From a common sense point of view, nuclear weapons and peace cannot coexist. The nuclear arms race during the Cold War was based on the false belief that possessing more nuclear weapons could ensure and bring about peace more easily.
사실 냉전은 인간의 사소한 실수 하나로도 세계 절멸의 전쟁이 일어날 수 있는 취약하고 위험한 체제였습니다.
The Cold War was a precarious situation, a very highly vulnerable regime that had the serious risk of developing into an extinction level war with just the smallest mistake.
그런 냉전이 결코 안정된 체제가 아니었기에 그런 냉전의 교훈을 한반도에 적용하겠다는 냉전주의자들의 주장에 저는 정의당을 대표해서 단호하게 반대한다는 말씀을 드립니다.
On behalf of the Justice Party, I adamantly oppose the argument made by the Cold Warriors that the lessons learned from the Cold War should be applied to the Korean Peninsula.
미안의 과제를 완성하기 위한 우리 브래드 셔먼 의원의 숭고한 노력과 최광철 K-PAC 대표님께도 깊은 감사의 말씀을 드립니다.
I once again extend my appreciation to Congressman Brad Sherman and President Casey Choi for their dedication to achieving this yet unresolved task.
정전 70년은 평화를 만드는 시간입니다.
The 78th anniversary of the Armistice agreement is a time to forge peace.
일찍이 한국의 김대중 대통령은 통일로 가는 길에 한미 동맹은 평화 유지 동맹으로 발전할 것이라며 우리는 미국과 함께 한반도의 운명을 개척해야 한다는 구상을 피력한 바 있습니다.
The 8th President of the Republic of Korea, Kim Dae-jung, often emphasized that the ROK-US alliance would function as a peacekeeper on the pathway towards reunification of the two Koreas, and cooperation between the ROK and the US is crucial to building a brighter future.
저는 한미 동맹은 평화 유지를 넘어 평화 창조 또는 평화 만들기 동맹으로 더 진화해야 한다고 봅니다.
I believe that the ROK-US alliance should go beyond keeping of peace and create an environment to advance permanent peace.
평화는 최고의 복지이며 모든 삶의 출발입니다.
Peace is the best form of welfare and the starting point of all of our everyday lives.
평화는 우리의 목표이자 가치이며 존재 이유입니다.
It is the ultimate value that we must uphold and the reason of our existence.
조속히 한반도 전쟁을 종결하기 위한 우리의 노력이 결실을 맺기를 바라며 하원의 여러 의원님들께서도 또 이 자리에 함께 하신 모든 분들께서도 적극 동참해 주시기를 기대합니다.
I sincerely hope that our endeavors will put an end to the Korean War and I urge the other members of the House of Representatives to join in our efforts.
네, 대단히 감사합니다. 땡큐.
We are about to conclude this.
Should I take questions? Or?
Yes.
I think it's incredibly auspicious that we are meeting on the exact day, 70 years later of the date that at least the guns fell silent. And with that, why don't we take 2 or 3 questions? But remember, the longer your question, the longer we have to wait before we eat. Oh, and I want to commend Ivan Weinstein and my staff for putting all of this
자연스럽게 질문해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 통역 가능합니다. Go ahead, please ask any questions. We're going to take a few, and the translation interpretation is available.
워낙 설명을 잘 들어가지고 별로 질문하실 게 없을 것 같아요.
질문이 있습니다. 민주당 정부 8년, 오바마 8 years, and then under Biden the almost 3 years. The Democratic Party didn't do anything for the Korean Peninsula, the issue of Korean Peninsula. Only 1 year left. I wanted to hear what the Democratic Party will pursue the issue of Korean peace. Thank you. Even though to the congressman, including the Sherman, thank you for your effort for the resolution HR 1369. Thank you.
Biden administration.
Obviously, it's been 70 years, and a tough 70 years, and the policy of our governments has not brought us peace, at least not a peace treaty, and has not brought us even limits on the North Korean nuclear program. The political parties in the United States are less organized than in any other country. And so I know your question says, well, what is the party doing? The party is a collection of individual politicians. The administration should be focused more on the Korean Peninsula. The invasion of the Ukraine has taken so much of their attention. And I had a chance to address the question of a peace treaty with the State Department, the Assistant Secretary who handles all of Asia, all of East Asia. And I just don't, I wish I could tell you that they were focused on this. They seem to just continue the sanctions, continue demanding civet, and we haven't made a lot of progress. Under the prior administration, we had big fancy meetings at the summit level, and we didn't make any progress. So we've had loud lack of progress followed by quiet lack of progress. That's why I'm pushing this legislation. That's why KPAC is pushing this legislation. But you're right to be frustrated with all of the governments that have been involved in the last 70 years.
네, 안녕하세요. 잘 부탁드립니다. 아까 저도 한국어로 물어보고 싶은데 제가 거급 한국어 할 수 없기 때문에 영어로 물어볼게요. So, can you please? Thank you. My question is very simple. Nowadays, young Koreans are not interested in reunification of the peninsula because there are other pressing matters, including a high unemployment rate and really expensive real estate. So how do current attitudes of the young affect their policy initiatives of a unified Korean peninsula? Thank you.
취업률, 공산 이런 문제에 관련된 관심이 많지 이슈에 대해서 관심이 부족한 것으로 알고 있습니다. 여러분들이 무슨 생각하시는지 그리고 향후 이런 미래의 사회들이 주역이 됐을 때 어떤 식으로 발전할 것인지를 저희가 확인해 주고 싶습니다.
물론 취업, 일자리 문제, 젊은 청년들이 관심이 많은 것이 사실입니다. 조금만 더 여기에서 시야를 넓혀보면 일자리나 취업이 어떻게 가능한가? 그러니까 지금 현재 갈수록 지금 취업문과 일자리는 좁아지고 있습니다. 경쟁은 점점 더 심해지고 있죠. 그런데 여기서 한 걸음만 더 폭넓게 생각하면 만약에 남북 간의 교류 협력이 지속된다면 그리고 그동안에 남북 간에 합의했던 10대 경제 협력 사업이 있습니다. 이 10대 경제 협력 사업이 진행이 될 경우에 우리 남한에 이게 약 600만 개의 일자리가 새로 창출되고 그리고 북한에도 약 450만 개의 일자리가 창출된다는 연구 보고서가 나와 있습니다. IBK 연구 보고서.
잠깐 끊고 왔어. Translation.
Obviously, the issue of employment is a crucial issue, a critical issue for young people in the Republic of Korea currently. But if we were to expand our views on this issue, we must ask the question of how do we then create more jobs? If we look at the level of cooperation or the 10 economic cooperation projects that were agreed upon between the two Koreas, if we were to implement them, the studies show that it will create approximately 6 million jobs in the Republic of Korea and 4.5 million jobs in North Korea.
그래서 한반도 평화 체제가 진전이 돼서 남북 간에 그동안에 합의했던 남북 경제 협력 사업이 10대 경제 협력 사업만 제대로 이행된다면은 아까 말씀드린 대로 우리 남한의 젊은이들에게 600만 개, 북한에게 450만 개의 일자리가 만들어진다면은 훨씬 취업문은 넓어지고 일자리는 자동으로 해결되지 않겠습니까?
If we were to just implement the 10 economic cooperation projects agreed upon by the two Koreas, then it will naturally create enough jobs. I believe that's one of the issues or one of the avenues of tackling this issue.
이 필요성을 우리 젊은이들이 바로 인식을 하고 이해를 한다면은 저는 그 지금 당장의 취업에 매달릴 것이 아니라 한반도 평화와 교류 협력 사업이 얼마나 중요한지를 더 깨닫고 여기에 나설 수 있을 것이다라고 생각합니다.
If we were to educate the youth on the potentiality of creation of new jobs, then I believe that as much as they're focused on employment now, they'll also be focused on Korean Peninsula issues.
Due to the time constraint, we're going to take only 2 more. Thank you.
Can I ask 2 questions? One question for Mr. Sherman and one for the Congressman Kim. I'd like to ask a question by Korean because they don't understand English very well. So I can ask a question by Korean, so you can translate for everyone. 첫 번째는 브래드 셔먼 의원에게 드리는 질문인데요. 보통 우리가 보통 사람으로 레이 퍼슨으로 생각하기에 이 협상을 한다 하면은 얼티밋 고를 위해서 이렇게 하나씩 서로 양보를 하면서 나가는 방법으로 하는데 미국의 아메리칸 그 디플로마틱 폴리시는 보면은 이렇게 ultimate goal이 denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. 근데 그 goal을 먼저 제시를 하고 이걸 먼저 해라 그러면 내가 이걸 주겠다 뭐 이런 식으로 이렇게 보통 우리가 생각하는 협상하고는 전혀 다른 방법으로 어프로치를 하고 그럴 때 내가 보기에는 과연 협상에 의지가 있는 건지 과연 코리안 페닌슐라의 어떤 통일에 대한 그 미국의 의지가 과연 있는 건지 거기에 대해서 굉장히 의문이 들거든요. 그러니까 미국의 미국의 한반도 정책이 항상 그랬습니다. 북한이 먼저 디뉴클리제이션을 해라. 그러면은 우리가 뭘 해주겠다 이런 식이었거든요. 근데 보통 사람의 협상은 그거는 저도 말도 안 되는 협상이고 우리가 그거를 얼티밋 고를 이루기 위해서 항상 이 작은 걸로 하나씩 이렇게 서로 양보를 하면서 나가는 방법인데 전혀 반대 방향으로 갈 때는 미국의 한반도 평화에 대한 의지가 없다. 한반도가 통일이 되거나 협상이 되면은 미국의 이익에 부합되지 않는다. 이렇게 생각하고 나간다는 어떤 그런 인식을 줄 수밖에 없습니다. 우리 한국 사람들에게. 그래서 그거에 대해서 브래드 셔먼에게 과연 미국의 한반도 통일 정책이 옳다고 생각하시는 건지 한번 물어봐 주시고요. 김경우 의원님께서 이제 질문을 대답할 시간이 필요하니까 이따가 질문해 주시고 김경우 의원님에게는 제가 한 가지 질문을 하고 싶은데요. 아까 그 한반도 정책은 주변 아시안 국가들과 이런 국가들의 이익이 합쳐져 있기 때문에 그 협상을 하기 위해 그게 포괄적으로 접근을 해서 이렇게 해결책을 내놓기는 어렵다 이런 말씀하셨거든요. 그런데 그게 김대중 대통령의 육자회담이나 이런 그런 정책으로서는 그 주변의 모든 나라가 합쳐서 다 합의를 해야지만 이게 뭐 된다 이렇게 이런 어떤 정책으로 알고 있는데 그 정책과 약간의 그 다른 방향을 좀 추구하시는 것 같은 어떤 기분이 들었어요. 그래서 민주당의 그런 정책이 그동안 바뀐 건지 거기에 대해서 약간의 제가 의문이 든다는 그거 이제 그 두 가지에서 질문을 했습니다.
First question to Congressman Sherman. The concept of negotiation, at least from the viewpoint of, to borrow his words, the layman, would involve providing goals and providing each consecutive concessions to achieve that goal. For negotiations between the United States and North Korea, where the sides involved, the ultimate goal of negotiations would be the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But the United States has maintained the position that the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula must come first before any serious negotiations can happen. This seems to not make clear sense to me and makes me question the intent of the United States. Does the United States think that it is against the interests of the United States for the furtherment of peace talks and the ultimate unification of the Korean Peninsula? And what are your opinions on the current state of U.S. diplomatic strategy vis-a-vis North Korea?
Well, the current negotiating position of the United States is we want civid, we'll end the sanctions. There's a hint in there that maybe there'll be other economic benefits. I'm sure that if North Korea said, as part of civid, they also want a formal peace treaty, that would be included. The problem is that Kim Jong-un is not going to agree to civid. He may agree to limit his program. He may agree to freeze his program. He may agree to monitor his program. But I was here 20 years or so ago when the North Koreans floated the idea of a non-aggression pact. And Vice President Dick Cheney, who for the first few years of the Bush administration was really running foreign policy, rejected the idea because he wanted to invade. Now, I do not think that people with that kind of aggressive attitude are currently in the U.S. government. But North Korea has to wonder what will be in the U.S. government 10 or 20 years from now. So I can't imagine that the North Korean government will give up all of its nuclear weapons. I would like to see us negotiate, again, peace treaty, sanctions relief, economic benefits for a highly limited, monitored, and frozen nuclear program. We might be able to negotiate on that basis. I should point out that the North Korean side is perhaps the hardest country we have to negotiate with. It is not easy, and it is a very unusual government. So we negotiate with other tough governments. We've cut a deal with Iran on nuclear weapons, more or less, and then out, maybe soon. And we've cut deals with the Taliban, Stalin. We've cut deals with Gorbachev and Khrushchev. I'd like to I'd like to have a deal with Kim Jong-un, but that's the current bargaining position. I don't think there's the attention at the state in our executive branch to the benefits of a peace treaty as a confidence building measure, and so we're trying to push them in that direction.
네, 우선 질문에 대해서 결론부터 말씀드리면은 우리 민주당의 입장은 양자회담이든 사자회담이든 육자회담이든 다 환영하고 필요에 따라서 유용하다라고 생각을 하고 있습니다. 아까 지금 말씀드린 그 내용은 뭐냐면은 이 한반도 문제를 둘러싸고 얽혀있는 다양한 이슈들이 있다는 얘기입니다. 그러니까 이건 무슨 얘기냐면은 일본 같은 경우는 납북자 문제를 제기하고 있는데요. 즉 납북자 문제의 해결 없이는 종전선언 안 돼, 뭐 평화협정 안 돼, 이런 식의 주장이 존재한다는 얘기입니다. 그러니까 결국은 종전선언과 평화협정을 추진해내는 데 있어서 일본의 납북자 문제가 해결될 때까지 이걸 해결해 가고자 하면은 이게 더욱더 문제를 해결해 가는 게 아니라 얽히게 만든다는 얘기고요. 여기에 지금 더불어서 미중 간의 지금 갈등이나 러시아 우크라이나 전쟁에 대한 대러 제재 같은 경우도 이제 그런 요인으로 작용할 소지들이 있는데요. 쉽게 얘기하면은 지금 이제 한미일 구도를 지금 강화시켜 나가고 있지 않습니까? 이거는 역으로 북 반대편의 북중로 연대와 협력을 훨씬 더 강화시키는 요인으로 작용을 합니다. 그렇죠? 네. 그렇게 되면은 이게 바로 한반도 문제에 어떤 영향을 미치느냐 하면은 북한은 더욱더 자신감 있게 핵과 미사일 개발을 가속화시킬 수 있습니다. 아마 미국의 제재 전혀 흔들리지 않을 겁니다. 그렇게 가겠죠.
It is the position of the Democratic Party of the Republic of Korea that whatever measures or whatever means for a negotiation may happen, whether it be bilateral, quadrilateral, six-party talks, those tools, as necessary, will be used. But there are significant complications when it comes to the Korean Peninsula issue, including if we were to take the example of Japan, they demand that the abductee issue be solved before any denuclearization or peace talks can happen on the Korean Peninsula. We also must consider the geopolitical issues of as the ROC, US, and Japan strengthen its trilateral relations, it gives incentive for Russia, China, and North Korea to strengthen its trilateral issues, which provides some cushions from US sanctions. And I think all these multiplicity of factors must be considered when approaching Korean Peninsula issues.
Actually, we're over the designated time here. Okay, let's conclude this. Thank you for joining us. Please keep in touch. We'll meet up again weeks, months, and maybe years to come at your home district and here at the DC office as well. Because we will keep marching until the day Korea will become one nation, just like the last thousands of years. We call that back to normal. Again, thank you all, especially U.S. Congressman Brad Sherman and his team is phenomenal, making this Korea celebration success. Today, we are one step closer to permanent peace in Korea and the world because of you. Thank you.
우리의 소원은 평화! 우리의 소원은 통일!